Today, we are going to talk about Sarah and Hagar, though not in the way you are probably used to hearing their story. Then we'll talk a bit about Priscilla, um, and again, probably in a way that you've not likely heard, even if you have even ever heard of Priscilla. So, though these stories occur generations apart, they still reflect both the positive and negative of humanity in each of us. Hagar is Sarah's slave. If you remember, just a few weeks ago, we discussed Sarah's laughter at the angels who told Abraham that she'd have a son in her old age. Today's passage in Genesis picks up with a celebratory feast that Abraham has thrown because that promised son, Isaac, is now weaned. It sounds like a lovely evening, right? Until you read just a little bit further. Sarah sees Isaac, her beloved, long-awaited son, playing with another boy, whose name is Ishmael. And something in Sarah breaks. Is it jealousy, regret, guilt, fear? Probably. And why? Ishmael is Abraham's true firstborn, but by Hagar, Sarah's enslaved. For Sarah, producing a male child was her life's purpose, and as each month and each year progressed and didn't happen, she became increasingly desperate, reaching a point of desperation in which she finally convinces her husband to conceive a child with Hagar. It's clear she did not think about the implications of that, how it would feel. Though we can't say with complete certainty, it is probable that Hagar did not have much voice or choice in this matter. She did what she was ordered to do, first by Sarah and then by Abraham. In one of the original cases of be careful what you wish for, Hagar does in fact conceive and gives birth to Ishmael. Abraham didn't care who birthed this boy, for this was his first son. His acceptance of Ishmael, though, set the foundation for Sarah's eventual reaction that is captured in today's first text. For when she sees her son playing with Hagar's, Sarah realizes her son's firstborn inheritance, as she sees it, is at risk, and it's simply too much for her to take. God gave her the promised son, and she was not going to allow that son to be deprived of the blessing due the firstborn. So Sarah takes the combination of all of those emotions that we can only imagine and channels them into one act, removing Hagar and Ishmael from the community, casting them out to the wilderness, with basically nothing but one skin of water. So we'll come back to Hagar in a few minutes. For now, transition to Priscilla's story from the book of Acts. Priscilla is a Jewish woman recently expelled from Rome and now settled in Corinth with her husband. Paul arrives there and meets Priscilla and Aquila, the husband, because of their shared trade. And the bond continues as Priscilla grows in her ministry and faith. Eventually, the couple travels with Paul to Syria and Ephesus, preaching in synagogues that Jesus is the awaited Messiah. It is Priscilla and her husband who eventually educate a very well-intentioned Alexandrian Jew in Ephesus named Apollos on the full message of Jesus, or the Way, as it was called. Priscilla is a Jewish working ministry leader who helped spread the word among synagogues alongside Paul that Jesus was Messiah. She was an early minister of the gospel. It cannot be denied or explained away. Sarah lived a life of trusting obedience to Abraham. She was faithful to him. She was faithful to God. And Sarah also fell victim to jealousy, doubt, and fear, unable to see past any of it. She stopped seeing Hagar as a fellow human equally created by the God that she worshipped, and instead saw her only as a threat to her idea of her son's future. She took that future into her own hands, and in so doing, put the future of Hagar and her son at great risk. Hagar, a woman Sarah was meant to care and provide for, not someone she was meant to cast out. Hagar likely believed she'd never have the opportunity to have a child of her own. Though the way in which Ishmael was conceived was far from ideal, she found joy and hope in him. So when they are cast out, she tries to keep that hope alive until the water runs dry. Desperate and out of hope, she leaves Ishmael in the limited shade that she can find in the wilderness, drops to the ground, and prays. It is telling that in today's texts, the only time the angels speak is to Hagar at her lowest point. God sends the angel to her and assures her Ishmael's cries are heard. God provides water, restoring hope, and God gives Hagar a glimpse of the true future awaiting Ishmael, a great nation of his own. Do you see the threads tying these women together? All three women of faith. All three are cast from their homeland. Go back a bit if you're wondering what that means for Sarah. Each woman also reflects back to us models in which we can live. So, who are you? Are you a Sarah, willing to push someone down or out to secure what you think is rightfully yours? Are you a Hagar, one who turns to the true source of life and hope rather than giving in to the despair? Do you listen to the angels God puts in your path? Can you hear and see the glimpses of the future God reveals to you when you most need to see them? Are you a Priscilla, one who carries the Spirit, shares openly your faith, and offers to educate others who do the same? A hard worker who is also hospitable and maybe a bit adventurous too. Have you mirrored perhaps each of these women at different points of life? That would be natural, I think. None of us is perfect, and we won't be on this side of heaven. We tell these stories not to show perfect examples of what we are to do and be, but to glean the positive and negative and learn, adapt, grow. Their stories need to be told, especially when, once again, we're at a point when the role of women in church is under debate, when once again there are those attempting to reduce a woman's purpose to childbearing. These stories are as accessible in Scripture as all the ones that actually are elected to be preached from the pulpit, and yet they are glossed over. Women are not the only ones to learn from the stories of Sarah, Hagar, and Priscilla. Their stories are recorded and needed and deserve to be seen and heard. And that is why we do this. Sarah was called, imperfect, and called. Hagar was called through her pain, through her needs. She is called. Priscilla was called. You are called. She is called, and she is speaking. And we're going to continue this ride. Thank you for being here.